afternoon and welcome. It's Lisa here from the Lisa Loves channel, doing a review on behalf of Geek Legion of Doom today. And today I'm going to review a horror movie with you. The title of the movie is Witching Hour. This is a 2014 movie and it's an anthology, so we have a group of writers and directors that work on individual stories. So I'll give you the four names that we have. We have Ken and Melanie Comito, Vicky Keane and Josh Spiegel. As this is an anthology story, we've got the wraparound and then 6 stories within that, so we've got 7 stories. I'm not going to give you a list of actors and actresses that's in it's obviously you're not here to listen to a list of names. I will give you the names of the 2 actresses that are in the wraparound story. They play Logan and Dee, and that's Emily, Johnson-Erday and Rihanna Roan. Right, I'm obviously not going to want to get into telling you the individual stories. I'm sure you don't want me to do that. To give you an idea, the wraparound story follows these 2 girls. They go into like an old-fashioned antique dealer type shop and they are attracted to an old-fashioned clock. The clock has a bit of a nasty history to it, hinted at by the owner and seller of the item. He doesn't want to go into too much detail about what it used to be. He won't tell the girls, but he does say that it has a history associated with the Nazis. He doesn't say any more than that, and the girls decide to buy the clock. Why is anyone's guess, but they buy the clock and they take it home. One of these girls is deaf. She seems to be the only person unaffected by it. The clock turns out to be possessed. This is not me giving you a spoiler, this is made clear right from the get-go in the movie. And the anthology stories follow one of the girls, the girl that isn't deaf. The clock relates to her, its history. So you get to see 6 different families that have owned this clock and what befell, what happened to the owners. And the main girl in the main wraparound story sort of has a steady decline into insanity, into just not being herself, not doing anything. She's just fixated with this clock. It's evil, it's possessed. So the stories, I'll give you the names of the actual, I'll maybe give you an idea as to what we're talking. The names of the stories contained within the anthology. We've got Blood Rites, Framing, Let There Be Dark, Misfortune and The Rules of Being Dead. One of those also follows, it was probably my favourite to be fair, The Rules of Being Dead. It actually follows a couple. One of them has obviously passed and he is still in the apartment that the couple share together. But she can't see him. They have an effect. It's the only one that was even halfway effective. They have this effect where he's like kind of see-through, you know, he's a ghost. And it was telling you the rules of being dead, and that one was quite good. It was quite tongue-in-cheek in places, it was quite funny. I don't think it took itself too seriously, but there were other areas where the use of effects was just terrible. There's one specific story with a young lad. I think he's meant to be seeing a counsellor, although the woman that is speaking to him, if she's a counsellor, really needs to go and look for another job. The way they put her across as a counsellor and her impatience and her disdain for this young boy's issue just did not sit right. It just did not translate very well. But there's an effect in that story with the young lad in it and it's just awful. My 7-year-old son would laugh at it if he saw it. And that effect is used later also within one of the other stories. Oh, it's terrible. I will say, what this reminds me of, if you've ever watched the American show Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction, it's a show that you sometimes get on cable TV on an afternoon. It presents a few stories and you have to try to work out which one's true and which one isn't, and that's half of the appeal of it. These stories are never that well acted. They're never, if there's effects to be had, they're usually pretty bad. But there is a charm about the stories because the actual essence of the story itself is interesting, and that's exactly how I feel about this. The essence of the story is really interesting. These 2 girls get this possessed item and we follow the history of who has previously owned this item and what happened to them. And that's a really good idea. It's a really good plot. And even the actual stories that were presented, most of them were pretty good, were pretty interesting stories, but the actual execution of the stories themselves just was not good. The acting was mostly really subpar. Some of it was passable, some of it was terrible. The effects were just awful, and contingency was just ridiculous. I mean, in one scene we had someone with a meat cleaver covered in blood, and the very next scene the same meat cleaver is glistening clean. Small things like that should be picked up. That's not to say this is a really gory thing. There's one story that is a bit, it's not even gory to be fair, it's just got a bit of blood in it, so don't think this is a really like gory thing, it's not. And so yeah, if you like watching kind of cheesy anthologies like Beyond Belief Fact or fiction, if you like that kind of thing, you might enjoy this. You could watch worse. The stories are interesting enough, but the execution is a bit poor. If I had to rate this one out of 10, I would come in at around a 4 for this, purely down to execution. If it was better executed and if the acting was a little bit better, then I might come in around a 5. It's not the worst thing you'll ever see, but it certainly isn't something you'd probably choose to sit down and watch in an evening. If you watch a lot of movies, then yeah, there's nothing wrong with throwing it on and seeing what you think, but I wouldn't set aside an evening to watch this when you could be watching something a lot better. So yeah, that's my viewpoint on Witching Hour. Have you seen it? It is actually a 2014 movie, so have any of you seen it? What did you think if you have? Does it sound like something you might enjoy? Are you a fan of Beyond Belief Fact or fiction? Let me know below in the comments and I'll speak to you next time. Over and out from Lisa Loves.